She ran through the airport corridor, clutching a passport that did not belong to her. Her breath was uneven, her palms were shaking, her eyes kept darting behind her like someone might call her name and drag her back into reality. But no one was chasing her. That was the most dangerous part, because silence meant she still had time to stop, and she didn't. Ada tightened her grip on the envelope inside her bag. Inside it was everything she wanted: a visa, a future, a man waiting abroad, a life she believed she deserved more than her sister. She didn't know yet that the flight she boarded would not land her in London. It would land her somewhere that would strip everything she thought she knew about herself, but rewind, because Ada did not become this version of herself in one day. She became it slowly, like rust forming on iron. Ada and Amara were sisters born into the same house in Lagos, but life wrote their stories in completely different ink. Amara was the one people clapped for: top grades, scholarships, praise from relatives, doors opening without struggle. Ada was the one people compared her to. "Why can't you be like your sister?" That sentence lived in Ada's head longer than any encouragement ever did. At home, Amara's success was not just celebrated, it was amplified. When Amara passed exams, it became dinner conversation. When Amara got opportunities, it became family pride. When Amara smiled, it felt like the house itself relaxed. Ada, meanwhile, learned how to become invisible without leaving the room. She started shrinking her voice, then her dreams, then her expectations, until she stopped expecting anything at all. But envy is never loud at first. It grows quietly, like a second heartbeat. Everything shifted the day Daniel arrived. He was not loud. He was not flashy. But his presence carried weight. A wealthy Nigerian businessman based in London, polished, calm, certain. And when he looked at Amara, he didn't look confused. He looked decided. For the first time in Ada's life, she saw her sister chosen without hesitation. Daniel brought gifts, calls, attention that felt intentional, not accidental. Then came the proposal. Fast, clean, final. The family celebrated like it was destiny, finally correcting itself. Ada clapped. Ada smiled. Ada helped plan. But inside her chest, something cracked quietly. Because for the first time, she didn't just feel behind her sister. She felt erased. Wedding plans began immediately. The house became louder with joy, but Ada stopped hearing it the same way. Amara was glowing, talking about London like it was already her home, talking about Daniel like he was her future in human form. Ada watched all of it like someone sitting outside a cinema she could never enter. Then one evening changed everything. Ada passed by the hallway and heard Daniel's voice on speaker, calm, controlled, businesslike. "I don't like delays," he said. "Once her visa is ready, she should come immediately." Immediately. That word stuck. Not because it was strange, but because it sounded like urgency, like replacement, like someone could take Amara's place if she wasn't fast enough. Ada stood still long after the call ended. Something inside her started reorganizing itself. Not into anger, into opportunity. Days later, it arrived. A thick official envelope, stamped, sealed, important. Amara left it on the table briefly while she went to answer a call. That was the moment. Ada saw it. Just one look, and she already knew. Inside was the visa. London, Daniel. Everything Amara was walking into without struggle. Ada's hands moved before her thoughts fully formed, slowly, carefully. She picked it up, not as a thief yet, just as someone curious, someone standing too close to temptation. And then she opened it. The document stared back at her. Official approval, her sister's name, a stamped future. Ada's chest tightened. For years, she had been told to wait, to accept, to be realistic. But what if realism was just another word for limitation? Her mind started talking faster than her conscience could respond. What if this is your only chance? You deserve something too. She won't even notice for a while. It's just one decision. The house was quiet that night. Too quiet. Ada sat alone in her room, staring at the envelope she should have returned. But she didn't. Instead, she packed a small bag. Not because she had planned everything, but because she had already crossed the first invisible line. At 3:17 a.m., she took Amara's passport. At 3:32 a.m., she left the house. And at 4:05 a.m., Ada stopped being the overlooked sister and started becoming someone else entirely. If you're watching this and you've ever felt invisible, overlooked, or compared to someone else, comment, "I see myself in this" below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe, because what happens next will show you how quickly desire can turn into disaster. Ada moved through Lagos Airport like someone walking inside a dream she didn't fully deserve. Every step felt rehearsed, every sound felt distant. Her heartbeat was the only thing she could hear clearly. She adjusted the small handbag on her shoulder, making sure it didn't bulge too much. Inside it were documents that did not belong to her identity anymore. A stolen name, a stolen future, a stolen confidence she was still pretending to feel. At check-in, the woman behind the counter smiled politely. "Passport, please." Ada handed it over. Her fingers trembled slightly, but her voice didn't. She had practiced the silence. The officer glanced at the passport, then at the system, then back at her face. A pause. Ada felt it. That tiny moment where truth could still collapse everything, but then the officer nodded. "Enjoy your flight." That was it. No alarms, no suspicion, no interruption, just permission. And with that single sentence, Ada crossed into a life that would not recognize her intentions. The boarding gate felt like a threshold between two versions of reality. Behind her was Lagos. Noise, memory, sisterhood, regret waiting to be born. Ahead of her was silence disguised as opportunity. She stepped onto the plane. Each step felt heavier than the last. Inside the cabin, the air was colder, more controlled. Everything smelled expensive in a way she couldn't name. She found her seat, window side. Of course she chose the window, not because she loved views, but because she wanted proof she was leaving something behind. As the plane taxied, Ada pressed her forehead lightly against the glass. The runway lights blurred into streaks. Her thoughts softened. For the first time in days, she allowed herself to imagine. London. A tall building, soft lighting, a man waiting with a calm smile, a life where nobody compared her again. Her lips curved slightly, a quiet smile. "Finally," she whispered. But the word carried no peace, only hunger. Takeoff hit harder than she expected. Her stomach dropped. The city shrank beneath her like it was being erased. But Ada didn't flinch. She held onto the armrest and kept breathing slowly. In her mind, she started rehearsing her arrival, what she would say, how she would act, how she would explain herself if needed. But mostly, she rehearsed being chosen again. She imagined Daniel waiting at the airport, not for Amara, but for her. Because in Ada's mind, she had already rewritten the story enough times that it felt believable. The plane leveled out, cabin lights softened, passengers relaxed, and Ada, for the first time in years, felt powerful. Not because she had earned anything, but because she had taken it. Hours passed, meals were served, announcements were made, time blurred. Ada slept lightly at some point, dreaming fragmented images of glass buildings and warm hands and a life she refused to believe wasn't hers. When she woke, the cabin was dimmer. The atmosphere had shifted. Landing soon, her heart picked up. This was it. The moment everything began. The pilot's voice came through the speakers, calm, standard, routine. But Ada's brain caught only fragments. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Reykjavik." Reykjavik? She blinked, once, twice. Her body didn't understand the word immediately. It didn't belong in her plan. It didn't belong in her imagination. She sat upright, confused, cold spreading slowly through her chest. Around her, passengers began collecting their belongings. But Ada stayed still. Her fingers slowly reached for her bag, then her passport, then the visa. She opened it, stared. Everything looked correct. But something inside her was screaming that nothing was. The airport in Reykjavik was quiet in a way that felt unfamiliar. Not Lagos noise, not London expectation. Something colder, more distant, more final. Ada approached immigration with careful steps. She handed over her passport. The officer took it, looked, paused, looked again. Then his eyes lifted to her face. "Where are you traveling from?" he asked. "Lagos," Ada answered quickly. Another pause. The officer typed something. The silence stretched longer than necessary. Then he leaned slightly forward. "Ma'am," he said slowly, This visa is not issued for you." Ada's breath stopped. Her mind refused to catch up. "What do you mean?" she asked, forcing a smile that didn't fit her face. The officer turned the document slightly. "The name on this visa belongs to another passenger record." Ada's fingers tightened. That's when it hit her. Not all at once, but in pieces, like glass cracking under pressure. She didn't just take her sister's visa. She had taken the wrong envelope entirely. For the first time since she left home, Ada felt something close to fear. Not fear of being caught, but fear of being nowhere. Her throat tightened, her thoughts scattered. Amara was supposed to be in London right now, with Daniel, with the life Ada tried to step into. But Ada was standing in a foreign airport with no clear identity that made sense to the system in front of her. The officer gestured politely. "Please step aside." And just like that, she was no longer a traveler. She was a problem. If you're still watching this story, pause for a second, because this is the part where everything feels like it's still fixable, until it isn't. Comment "wrong turn" if you've ever made a decision you instantly regretted. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because the next part is where consequences start breathing back. Ada sat on a hard airport bench in Reykjavik, staring at her phone like it could rewrite reality. No notifications, no rescue, no explanation that could save her. Her breath came in shallow waves. She tried calling Amara. Once, twice. The line didn't connect. Then she tried Daniel's number. It rang, then cut off. That silence felt intentional, like the world had already moved on without her permission. Ada's fingers shook as she opened her gallery, searching for something familiar. A photo of her sister, a wedding planning note, anything that proved she still had a place in the story she came from. But every image now felt distant, like they belonged to someone else's life. Because they did. A soft announcement echoed through the airport. Foreign words she didn't fully understand. But one thing was clear, she was alone here, not just physically, structurally, legally, completely misplaced in a system that didn't recognize her version of events. Hours passed, then more. Ada sat in the same position, only shifting when her body forced her to. At some point, a staff member approached her. "You need assistance?" the woman asked. Ada hesitated. Yes, she needed everything, but her pride answered first. "I'm fine," she said. And that sentence sealed her isolation even further, because now she wasn't just stranded. She was unclaimed. Later that night, she finally managed to access weak airport Wi-Fi. One message loaded, from an unknown number, but it wasn't unknown. It was Amara. Ada's hands froze before opening it. Then she did. "Ada, why did you take my documents?" 3 dots appeared immediately. Typing, stopping, typing again. Then another message. "I'm in London. Daniel's asking questions. They almost sent security to our house." Ada's chest tightened. The truth was catching up faster than she was ready for. She typed back immediately. "I didn't mean..." But she stopped, because even she didn't know how to finish that sentence. Another message came. "Do you know what you've done?" Ada swallowed. Her throat felt dry. Before she could respond, Amara continued. "They had to verify everything again. The system flagged inconsistencies. Daniel's office is involved now." Ada felt her stomach drop, not because she understood everything, but because she understood enough. This wasn't just confusion anymore. It was escalation. Then the final message came. "I had to reapply. Everything is delayed. I don't know what happens next." Ada's hands slowly lowered. Her breath stopped for a second too long. She had not just taken a visa. She had disrupted a chain of trust, timing, and approval she didn't understand. And worse, she had not even reached London. A staff member eventually returned, this time with seriousness in her expression. "Miss Ada," she said, checking a document. "You are not cleared for entry here beyond transit." Transit. The word landed heavily. That meant temporary, not arrival, not destination. Just pause. The officer continued. "You will need to return to your country of origin or apply for emergency documentation through embassy channels." Embassy. Return. Nigeria. The words blurred together. Because now Ada understood something terrifying. She was not building a life abroad. She was being processed out of one, and there was no version of this where she simply stayed and became who she imagined. That night, Ada finally broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, like something collapsing inward instead of outward. She remembered Amara laughing in the kitchen. She remembered helping her pack. She remembered pretending to be supportive while something inside her was twisting. She remembered Daniel's voice. Immediately, that word now felt different. Not urgency, but structure. A system she never belonged to. And she remembered the moment she opened that envelope, not as a thief, but as someone who thought life could be negotiated. Now she understood something she didn't want to accept. Life doesn't negotiate consequences. It enforces them. If you're still watching, this is the part where most people stop blaming circumstances and start recognizing choices. Comment, consequences are real. If this story is hitting differently than you expected. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because the final part reveals what happens when Ada tries to fix something that may no longer be repairable. His return flight to Nigeria felt nothing like the journey that took her away. That time she had been running towards something. This time she was being carried back by consequence. No excitement, no imagination, no hope, just silence sitting heavily on her chest. At Murtala Muhammad Airport, Lagos welcomed her the way it always did. Noise, heat, movement. But Ada didn't feel like she had returned. She felt like she had been dropped. At immigration, her documents were flagged. Extra questions, extra waiting, extra stares. Not dramatic, just uncomfortable enough to remind her that she no longer moved through systems smoothly. Eventually, they let her go. But nothing about it felt like freedom. Outside, the world continued like nothing had changed. But Ada had changed too much to blend back in. When Ada finally got home, the house felt smaller than she remembered. Or maybe she had just outgrown it in the worst possible way. Her mother saw her first, then froze, then asked the question no one wanted to ask, but everyone already knew the answer to. Where is your sister? Ada didn't answer immediately, because the truth had too many layers now. Then Amara walked in, and the room changed temperature. There was no shouting at first, no explosion, just stillness. Amara looked at Ada for a long time, not with hatred. Not with pity, with something heavier, disappointment mixed with disbelief. You really did it, Amara said softly. Ada opened her mouth, closed it again. Nothing she prepared in her head made sense anymore, because explanations don't repair trust. Only time tries, and even time doesn't always succeed. Amara finally spoke again. Her voice was lower now, controlled. They had to pause everything, she said. Ada blinked. Daniel's office flagged inconsistencies in the visa chain. It affected my application. They thought there was fraud involved. Ada felt her stomach twist. Fraud. The word sounded heavier than theft. Amara continued. Daniel asked questions I couldn't answer immediately. It wasn't just embarrassment. It became investigation. Silence fell again. Then Amara added something quieter. He almost ended everything. Ada's breath caught. Not because she lost something, but because she understood she had almost erased something for her sister. Not just a relationship, but a future structure that had already started forming. Ada finally spoke. Her voice was small. I didn't think it would go this far. Amara let out a short laugh. Not amused. Tired. That's the problem, she said. You didn't think at all. The words didn't cut like knives. They settled like weight, because they were true in a way Ada couldn't escape. Amara sat down slowly. You didn't just take a document, she continued. You stepped into decisions you didn't understand. Ada lowered her head. For the first time, there was no defense forming in her mind. No justification, just awareness, heavy and irreversible. Days passed, then weeks. Daniel didn't return. The engagement remained suspended in uncertainty, not canceled, not continued, just frozen in a space where trust used to be. Amara stopped talking about London the same way. The dream had been touched now, and dreams that get interrupted rarely return unchanged. Ada tried to help at home again, but something had shifted. Even kindness now felt delayed, measured, careful, because everyone understood that one decision had rewritten emotional safety in the house. One evening, Ada sat alone outside the house. The Lagos air was familiar again. But she wasn't. She replayed everything. The comparison, the envy, the envelope, the airport, the wrong destination. But now she saw it differently. It wasn't one mistake. It was a series of ignored warnings she had dressed up as opportunity. She whispered to herself, "I thought I was choosing a life." A pause. "But I was just avoiding mine." That truth didn't comfort her, but it grounded her, and sometimes grounding is the first step back from falling further. If you watch this story till the end, pause for a second, because everyone has had a moment where desire tried to outrun consequences. Comment, "I choose differently," if this made you reflect. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because stories like this are not just fiction. They are warnings wrapped in narrative.